It's 8 o'clock on the dot. How about that for homeschoolers? We can't stand in straight lines when we go on outings, but we can actually start on time. So there we go. Welcome everybody. This is now the third in our series. We've done preschool and primary school, and now we're going to cover the high school years. And I want to share something that Shirley and I both believe, is that even in these high school years, that our children's educations should be tailor-made. A lot of parents hit the high school years and then have a wobbly because something shifts in thinking, and we've seen a number of parents put their kids back into school into a system that they chose to opt out of. Shirley's favorite cartoon is there at the bottom. I hope you can read it. It looks quite small, but it says that instead of a standardized testing where each of those creatures were asked to climb a tree, that we don't climb trees. We find each one's unique place and purpose and the thing that they excel at. And this happens even in the high school years. So,
or even after.
And even after.
There's no formula. A lot of kids, hit 16, 18, and they're still really not too sure about where they want to go with their life. And that's okay. Just because everybody else makes that career choice about what they're going to do at 18 when they finish school, it doesn't mean our children need to. I think it's better to take a year or two after that age and learn more about yourself and learn more about the world, and then make those choices. So as parents, we feel so under pressure, especially when our children don't have a passion and a direction that they're going in. They just seem to be drifting and floating and even lazy, as some teenagers seem to be. It's quite scary. So just hang in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the lovely things, is giving them the freedom in which to discover exactly what it is. And yeah, it is a journey. So I thought that what I would do is quickly read this is not our definition, not our words, but it is a really good description of what is eclectic homeschooling. I'll read it in case it's a bit small. I'm sure it's okay unless you're on a phone. Eclectic homeschooling is a highly individualized education method resulting from mixing and matching a variety of homeschooling resources. It's an exceptionally personalized approach for every child based on their strengths, learning styles, and interests. Many families find that what worked well one term may not work the next, or in some cases, what works for a child in one subject does not work in another subject. As a result, the eclectic homeschooling approach will be completely different for different families. While some pursue only a classical approach or others an unschooling strategy, eclectic homeschoolers see value in a variety of different educational methods. So I thought that was a really good summary of an eclectic education. But if you want to understand more about that, take a look on our YouTube channel, and you will see that I've actually done a really bright banner for the previous live streams that we've done. Shirley, before we jump straight in to just a quick revision of what we covered on the other ones, is there anything that you would like to add onto what an eclectic education is?
I just love that it highlighted that it's individualized, because I think to me personally, that's what I love, is that we can customize the kind of education that we give to our children. And so to me, it's not about the name, what you call it, it's about the child. It's giving them what they need at each stage so that they can pursue the goals that they need and develop the skills that they need for life, really. It doesn't really matter what it's called. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do like to label things and say, well, I follow this or I follow that, but you're 100% correct. As way of a quick review of what we've covered in the previous ones, that that you know that what we start off with in the young years carries on. So in the preschool section, we spoke about the Moore formula, which is a balance, a ratio balance of making sure that our children have this same amount of time spent in academics, service in the home, and character training. Obviously, the circle, as the children grow, gets wider, so the service can extend to the community, into working for nonprofit organizations. I'm just trying to think of some of the things that we did, going, oops, yeah, I told you I was going to have lots of animals visiting us tonight. Let me just go popping down. Yeah, so that was what we covered in detail, because those preschool years are the foundation for teaching our children to work alongside us in the home and training their character, so that when they face calculus in the high school years, that it's not this huge all fall down, because they've learned what it means to work hard. So before I flash through to the next one, Shirley, anything you want to add there?
No, carry on. I'll jump in when I want to.
Okay, cool. Like we always do, hey, button.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we also covered, last week, we covered the difference between a discipline and a discretionary subject. Discipline subjects are the things that we need no matter what job we end up doing, whether we are a stay-at-home mom, whether we're an engineer, or anything in between. We will always need reading, writing, and mathematics. Those we do layer for layer, grade by grade, year by year. If you want to understand more about those, then just take a look on the YouTube channel, like I said earlier, and you can look at our primary school live stream, and in that one we cover this a lot. Then we spoke about discretionary studies, which is everything else. It's the fun stuff. This is where you find your children's interests and strengths. Sorry, I just need to quickly admit somebody else into the thing, and then I can go back to that. This is where your children will learn, will start to follow and show their bent, their interest, whether kids are language intuitive or maths intuitive or very artistic or much more scientific. That is that lovely, interesting basket that we love to dip into. You from 16 and if not before, please understand, like Shirley said, we like to label things. Really, the age is irrelevant. Some kids show what they really want to do early on, others later, but they should have a large say in what they want to study. Maybe they want to include more art, more physics, more maths. It's up to them. So that's the discretionary studies bundle. Okay, let's go back to that. All right. So that was just a quick review of what we have covered in the previous sessions. And going from there, what do we look like in high school years? Shirley, would you like to speak there about what do high school years look like? They don't always look like a nicely laid out path ahead of a child. They can sometimes look a little messy. Why don't you share your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you just ended on the next sort of connection point, where you said that when doing the discretionary subjects, you want to allow your children to be involved. And this is what you're doing when you get to the high school years. You're starting to hand over the reins to the children and then let them make decisions and let them take responsibility for various aspects of their lives. So for example, when it comes to the academics, I actually start doing that even in the earlier years. I'll sit each year at the beginning of the year and say to the children, what do you want to learn? Is there anything you would like to add, or a course you would like to take, or a skill you'd like to develop? And I mean, often when they're young, they don't have anything specific. And then I just say, well, as the parent, I'm older and wiser, and I think you need to learn maths and you need to learn to read, etc., etc. But as they get to the high school years, they may come and say, I want to learn photography. And that's not really an academic thing that we would normally think of. So then you can find an online course, or you find a tutor, or, you know, you often see on parent forums too, people asking for advice for those unusual things. Somebody wants to learn about, I don't know the term, but it's knife making. There's some term for it. You know, that's not the normal stuff that a school teaches, but you can allow your children to have their say. You might also have the opposite, where at 14, I had a son who said, Mom, I'm not doing Afrikaans workbooks anymore. I speak it well enough and I understand it well enough. And I tried to argue with him about why he should just continue a little bit more. And then he said, I'm also don't want to do English. And that kind of blew me away, because we all know we need English skills. And we try to convince him, and we try to ask him, would you like a different curriculum? Would you like a different way of doing it? Would you like to write a blog or a diary instead of doing grammar exercises? And at that point, it was, when I look back, that was the point where he took ownership of his education. And so we said to him, these are the potential consequences if you make this decision. And these are things that we see down the line that you're going to need to do. And to cut the story short, when he came to write his GED, he had to do English, he had to write an essay, and he did it and he passed well. But there was just a point where he said, I'm happy to do maths, I'm happy to do science, I'm happy to do, he was doing IT programming with a tutor and a few other things. And he felt that that was what he wanted to focus on. So it's quite scary when you get teenagers that sort of decide on something unconventional. But somebody had a nice saying that Wendy and I have borrowed, and we say it quite often nowadays: we're not raising children, we are raising adults.
Yeah.
So we actually need to allow them to make adult-like decisions, even when they're not adults. And maybe they're going to even make wrong decisions, and you need to allow them to make those mistakes and learn some of those lessons. So the point is that we gradually handing over the reins.
Absolutely, I agree. And you know, like I said, sometimes it looks a bit messy. We had one of our children who decided that he'd done with school at 16 and took 18 months, started a free-range meat business, and in that time learned how to draw and found a passion and a love for art and animation, and that's his career at the moment. But it's not easy as a parent to stand by and watch, you know, your kids make things that are so counterculture. But you know, the time also, I think it's important to state, you know, it's not, we're not saying that your aim is to still have your child sleeping on your couch at 30. That's not that's not necessarily what we mean. But to give them the freedom and the latitude that if they are square pegs, don't try and force them into a round hole of what we're going to talk about now, Cambridge or GED. Give them some time to figure things out for themselves. And the way things generally do, they do tend to wiggle themselves out all on their own. If we continue to support them and love them and direct them and guide them and ask them questions and dialogue.
Yeah, I think that's the next point I was going to say, that actually at this point, keeping up a good, strong relationship with them, in spite of funny things that might be happening in their lives, is the important thing. Because you can also use that to gauge where they're at, and you can see, you know, are they responsible when it comes to doing their chores? Are they responsible when it comes to doing their part-time job or their business or something? And those things will show you that they actually do have the character traits that they need to do what's required when they decide it's something that they want to do. So if your child's decided not to do essay writing for schoolwork anymore, but you can see that they've got the diligence to sit and puzzle out other things or to apply themselves to other things that need to be done, then you don't need to worry, because when they realize one day I need to write an essay, they've got the diligence to go and learn that skill or practice it or do whatever it takes to reach their goal. But now they've got the self-motivation instead of us standing there, you know, sort of trying to egg them on to do things they don't want to do. So I think you've got to just learn to pick your battles.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking, you know, about sometimes it's an external pressure, you know, saying that they're going to do an exam and they need to learn how to write an essay. And other times it's an internal pressure. And with that same son, he was 18 and still, you know, not doing any form of formal academics. And he started training for the Cape Argus with a group of kids, Weinberg boys and Springfield girls. And they were all in their matric years. And he was like, gosh, you know, am I, you know, not going to fit in, or should I be doing this? Or, you know, I need, and he came and he said, I need a certificate. I need to say that I finished my schooling. And that was 5 years ago. And he decided to do the GED, which we're going to talk about just now. He did it in a record time, and he scored in the 90th percentile for most of his subjects. And he had made that decision. He had bought in. I didn't have to do anything except drive him to the test date. So that's what we're really wanting from our kids, particularly in their high school years, is that they have bought into this idea that this is their education. It's not something that's been enforced on them, not a good choice that's been enforced on them. It's something that's coming out of them, that they are taking over their lives. And that process starts in the young years, teaching them, like we said, in the primary school years. Actually, it was in one of our other chats about raising independent learners, is that it starts with teaching our children to do their chores, you know, pulling their bed straight in the morning, helping you sweep up, helping you make supper, and then just easing yourself out of the picture, whether it is while they're doing a page of sums or something like that. And if you continually do that and open up that funnel of responsibility, you will find that they will pick that up themselves. But if we're going to be, like we said in that video, moms that are still tying shoelaces for our kids at 16, or dads, we really are not raising adults. We're raising them to be dependent on us, which, shall I see, we've got somebody that keeps on getting dropped here. But anyway, okay. You want to add into that, or shall we move on to the next point that we were going to? We're trying to be a little bit more organized than normal, and so that we can cover everything in time. Or do you want something?
No, I think let's move on. That's fine.
Okay, so
Wendy and I can talk forever.
Yeah, we'll sit here and gab. So we've got 3 things that we would like to discuss this evening. We would like to introduce the parents who are here to Footprints into the 21st Century, which is our high schoolers program. We also want to discuss in detail school leaving routes. Shirley's going to cover GED, and I will do a brief overview of Cambridge. And then we want to give you sufficient time to ask your questions, because we often find that in that a lot of other parents' questions are answered as well. So should we start off with footprints? Or would you like to? Yeah, I think that probably makes logical sense to do that. So let me call up footprints. So the admitting here. Footprints into the 21st Century is the 3rd in the series of programs that we have. I just want to quickly find our slide. We've covered the other 2 programs in our previous webinars, but this one is for the 12 to 16 years of age, and it covers the last 100 years of South African history. I would probably say the sweet spot for it is 14, but you often find that children that are younger in a home with older children can handle the content just fine, except that they would need the parents involved in it. It's a program that's written to your children, not to you. So, you know, obviously you can be involved as much as you choose to be, but ideally it's sort of a transition program for them to take ownership of their own days, getting their assignments done on time. So we've written it directly to your high schooler. It covers history, natural science, life skills, and apologetics, and focuses on the last 100 years of South African history. So it picks up at the Anglo-Boer War, or the South African War, where our previous Footprints program leaves off. The previous program focuses mostly on the war from the perspective of the British and the Boer. This one starts off with the concentration camps, the scorched earth policy, the slaves and servants that were taken into war, and the impact that it had on the economy of the country. Oh gosh, it's already telling us that we've only got 10 minutes. Have we been talking that long?
Yes, yeah.
Gosh. All right, so guys, we will stay on for a bit, but if you get dropped because the meeting ends, please just log back in with the same login details. We updated it last year to include the Angolan Bush War, the state capture report, more on the voting and parliamentary system, and then a very thorough life skills section from, like I said there, the life as a digital native, all the way through to relationships and healthy eating and office ergonomics and Christian apologetics, etc. And okay, let me just quickly stop that share there. I want to quickly flip through, and now I can't find the screen share. I'm still getting used to this. Sorry, it says needs somebody be admitted over there. Screen share.
You're multitasking very well. Keep going.
Oh, gosh, my ADD is going through the roof here. Okay, so the scope and sequence of 21st century is you have your social studies, which is generally history. There are 8 sections, and each of those sections has a correlating natural science, apologetics, and life skills section. So I'm not going to scroll too quickly, but that is your second 4 sections. Every section has a correlating online link. Well, it's a website that we've got, which is password protected, that parents can go to for their kids to go and get further information, whether it is reading, whether it is video resources, etc., other information as well, so that it brings in a sort of a multimedia approach to their education. Shirley, while I find the next screenshot, will you pick up where I've left off?
Okay, I don't know where you were going, but anyway.
Drop you right there.
But it's the same as with the other programs. You've got to add your own maths and anything else to this. Just covers your social studies. We'd also recommend adding a science program if your children want to go in a science direction, or you feel they need those basics, and then Afrikaans or any other second language as well. But this is a really interesting program because it takes our children through that last 100 years and helps them to understand why our country is where it is today, and it helps them to think critically. Our idea is that we present media from different resources so that they can start to be challenged in their thinking.
Yeah,
right.
So what I've got over here is section 5 for you to get a feel of how it's laid out. Social sections, social studies obviously covers your history. We try to bring in things like you can see the 2 videos over there. So while the #1 ladies detective agency is not South African, it's from Botswana, it is just one of those delightful things about Africa to watch, and just a lovely way for you and your kids to sit down, you know, you and your teens, and make a big bowl of popcorn and watch some relatively safe movies together. So we lay out everything for you on the first few pages, and then we will give you all the information that you need, and you just read this through like it were a storybook. And obviously we've given you the more detailed book reviews of the resources in there, field trips, additional websites, and we've got an art appreciation program that goes along with this. And where we can, we've tried to make this really real for your teams and give testimonies and things from sort of our era. I'm not going to tell you how old Shirley and I are, but from our era, so that they can actually realize that, you know, these last 100 years was actually lived by their parents in general. So all the background information is there. and then after they've done all of their reading in their books and in the guide, we have a series of assignments. We ask that the children do up to, well, as many as they want to, but a minimum of 2 different types. So either one hands-on or creative and the other one sort of more written, plus their timeline one. And always prompting you to plan ahead to get other books in case you're using the system via the library. We can supply the books too, but you can also use interlibrary loan and that sort of thing. Anyway, and on it goes. So this is now your nature study or your natural science, covering the different biomes in the country, and then your life skills. Like I said, they vary between all the different things, from health through to relationships. And then apologetics. This one is watching a very popular series, and then obviously your assignments again. So that's just a quick flip through of that. To say also that the 21st Century Program, different to the other ones, has a very detailed, I just want to share the screen again, has a very detailed daily schedule. So we will tell you exactly what page to read. Remember, this is again to try and wean your children off your presence all the time and give them responsibility to keep up with their own assignments, their own reading and that sort of thing. So every week is laid out for your children in a schedule like this. And on top of that, on top of that, we've also got a language arts. Shirley, you wrote that language arts program. Would you like to talk parents through it quickly?
Yeah, so we wanted to encourage the whole Charlotte Mason idea of using dictation and copy work, and then also developing children's writing skills. And so each week there is a text that has been selected, usually from one of the books that they are reading, which they can use for dictation and for copy work, because it's been shown that children learn good language skills by copying from the masters. And then on day 3, there's various different items where they're challenged to learn different styles of writing. So how to write an ad that's going to convince somebody to do something, or how to write a newspaper report recording some event that happened. And so they're given little tips about it. They're given examples in the texts that they are using in their studies. And then we encourage them to give it a go themselves. So it was just created so that there would be a nice integrated language arts program that goes along with the program. But if you choose to use something else as well, that's your choice. But this is as an optional extra.
Okay, so we've now got less than a minute. We're probably going to all have to log out, and then when we come back, we'll look at school leaving. So we will see you all back here in a minute. And then share the screen again. Well done. Okay, so the 4 most common ways that children tend to exit their homeschooling years and carry on is by Cambridge, GED, CAPS or IB, and becoming more popular now is the American Homeschool Diploma. Shirley's going to chat now about, I'm just going to quickly change you to host, is going to chat about, Shirley, where do I find you to make you host? Under more, make host, there we go. Shirley's going to chat now about GED as a school leaving option.
Okay, I saved it as GED in 10 minutes. So let's hope I can get to it in 10 minutes.
Good.
So, basically, I'm just going to do it in 10 minutes. And if anybody needs more details, there is actually a longer half-hour webinar that focuses only on the GED at teachable.com. But I can post that link in the comments, or you can email me to get those details if you want it later. So what is the GED? Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, got it.
Okay. So in essence, it's a grade 12 alternative. and it is recognized in South Africa as comparable with the National Senior Certificate. SAQA will issue you a certificate of evaluation that says it's the closest comparable South African qualification is the National Senior Certificate, or an NQF level 4. And USAF, which is University South Africa, who govern the entrance criteria for our local universities, also recognize it, but a GED alone is not sufficient to get exemption from them for university. I'm going to talk about that right now. So that's always the big question. Can you go to university with a GED? And technically the answer is yes, but there are a few steps you have to take into consideration. You can either study at an online overseas university. There's some that will accept you with a GED alone. Some will accept you with the GED plus the SAT, which is an American college entrance exam. You can also go straight into a South African tertiary institution, a university or a college, with a GED alone. If you're doing a higher certificate, which is an NQF 5, remember GED and Matric is NQF 4, or if you're doing a diploma course, because they don't require exemption. But if you want to study for a degree course in South Africa, then you must have a Matric with a bachelor's pass, or you must have acquired an exemption by some other way. So there are different types of exemption. Senatorial discretion is probably the most challenging one, because you would have to convince the Senate or the dean of the faculty you're applying to that what your child has done is adequate to show that they will cope at university. There are people who've done it. If you're 23 or older, you can get exemption if you've got a Matric or a GED, but you didn't get exemption when you wrote your Matric. If you're older than 23 and you've passed Matric or you've got a GED, you qualify for mature age exemption. And then what most young homeschool teens are going to have to do is get further tertiary qualifications. And this pathway, you need to get confirmation according to your goals. But the law says that if you've done an NQF 5 course, which is that higher certificate or diploma course, then you can apply to USAF for exemption. But you must always check with the institution, because some do accept it and some don't. And every faculty of every university has different entry requirements, and sometimes there are other requirements over and above the minimum requirements legally set for entrance to university. This is just an excerpt from that Higher Education Act, which I highlighted with red, that says that if you've completed a course registered at level 5 or higher, then you can apply for exemption by virtue of academic and professional certificates. This is also on our GED website at onlineged.co.za on the section about university. So you can go and read it in your own time in more detail. But as I said, there is no guarantee. So always make sure that you plot out that pathway and get confirmation that what you choose to do will be accepted. And then you work backwards and meet all those requirements on that pathway. For people who want to know about doing online NQF 5 level courses, I've actually got another website up called Online University Degrees, where you can go and read about higher certificates and online diplomas that your homeschool children could do. But of course, if you investigate all the offline options at the institutions near you, then there'll be even more. So there's always a way. You've just got to find it. And the laws changed at the end of 2019 about getting exemption. Previously, our students could get foreign conditional exemption. And so this pathway with a GED plus an NQF 5 afterwards is still quite new. And people are going to have to do a little bit more homework to figure out how to get where their kids want to go. So what does the GED test? It's 4 subjects: reasoning through language arts, which is basically an English test, maths and science and social studies. And you have to pass all 4 tests to earn your credential. There's no choice of subjects. To do it, you study. So I offer this online prep course that many students choose to do. Sorry if I'm looking away, it's because I've got my slideshow on another screen. Then you book your tests whenever you're ready. You can book any time of year because there's no set exam dates. It's really convenient. Your child goes to a test center and they sit on a computer and they write each test when they're ready. There are about 40 test centers around the country, and you book your tests online. And it suits children with learning difficulties because they can take as long as they need to prepare for an exam. And if they have been diagnosed as having some kind of learning challenge, you can apply for accommodations. Usually they're given extra time, but depending on the child's need, you can apply for other things like somebody to read or to have a separate room. But you do need to do that well in advance because those special requirements need to be arranged and not all test centers can necessarily offer them. So you just need to check on that. So you write your tests. Once you've passed them all, you have to get 145 out of 200 to pass. I just left the slide in because it shows that there's different levels that are recognized by the colleges in the USA, obviously where the GED is used most. And then once you've passed your test, you apply to get your transcript, which is like the report card with your scores sent to you, and your diploma. And they'll send it to you in digital format, but I advise everybody to also pay to have a paper copy sent to you via courier. They use FedEx, so it gets delivered to your door so that you've got those hard copies whenever you need them. There's a close-up shot of the transcript, so it gives the 4 scores for each subject, and it gives a percentile rank, which is not a percentage. Quite often it confuses people. They tell you how you rank compared to everybody else who wrote that test in a given time. So if you got a percentile rank of 65, it means that you scored, it means that everybody else scored 65% of the people who wrote the test scored the same as you or lower. So it just ranks you against other people. There's a copy of the credential that you get. As I said, you can apply to SAQA if you need a certificate of evaluation. Not everybody does, and because it's quite expensive, I would only apply if you do need it. Some colleges ask for it, and sometimes employers ask for it because they don't know what a GED is. But it's becoming more and more well known. There's a copy of that certificate that you get. I know it's not very clear, but it does say on there that it's comparable with the South African Matric or NQF4. And I just thought I'd end with a summary of the benefits that so many families enjoy. And these are some of the reasons why they choose the GED. And it's because they're looking for a recognized school leaving option. It's much more affordable than many of the others. You don't have to do your grade 10 and 11 through some recognized service provider. The only requirement to start the GED is, or actually to write it, is that you must be age 17 or older. So I recommend that students do eclectic homeschooling until about age 15, 16. And in that year when they're 16 going on 17 at the earliest, then they should enroll and do the online study course. And some students are only ready at 18 or even older to do their GED. There's no set age, as I've said. You can start any time of year. There's no deadlines. As I said, there are no exam dates, so you take as long as you need to write each exam. You go at your own pace. And what's really different about the GED is those points 10 and 11. It doesn't require students to study and memorize facts and know everything off by heart and cram the night before, because it's testing skills. And the online course helps the children to practice those skills. And the main skill it's testing is the ability to read and understand, and then to think critically about what you're reading. So your children won't have to be sitting at the books the night before the exam, because it's a process of developing that way of thinking. And that is how the world works today. We don't have to learn off by heart that Jan van Riebeeck arrived in 1652. We just have to know how to use Google to find that information when we need it. So the skills are different. There's a quick view of the costs at the moment. I'm always a bit reluctant to put them up because exchange rates fluctuate and things change all the time. But in August 2020, it's 2,700 Rand to enroll, and it's $75 for each of the 4 tests. And I'll just end with our contact details. If you want to find out more, you're welcome to go on our website or just drop us an email and we'll send you the necessary info. I'm done. Over to you, Wendy.
Was that in 10 minutes? Did you make it?
Did I? I don't know.
You did. I think you even did it under that. Okay, so let me just quickly take back the host. All right, so just to say that 2 of my children did GED and found it a painless process, and it gave them the stepping stone that they needed for their next step in life, which I think is whatever school leaving certificate your children choose, or even if they don't choose a certificate, that's the important point, is that you can, it's just about what do I need to do to help them take their next step. And yeah, that was, it was a great summary. I'm going to quickly cover Cambridge, but I am not affiliated to Cambridge at all. It's just that my other 2 children did Cambridge, and I do not have a Lani screen show to give you. And you can ask me questions and I can do the best that I can. There are specialists out there in the homeschooling arena who can advise you better, but just so that you get an understanding of what Cambridge is, let me quickly share the screen with you. So Cambridge International is probably the most direct route into university. And you have a variety of different subjects to choose from, which allows your kids to specialize quite early. I had one of my children go through Cambridge, and her goal was to live by her pen and to be an author and to write. So she chose all of the history and languages and that sort of thing. And then my other one, my youngest, is math, science, chemistry, physics, computer science, etc. So you can see the way it is broken up is that you have 2 levels that you need to do: Cambridge IGCSEs and your AS. So it's the ones that I'm highlighting there. IGs are sort of a grade 11 equivalent. Some families choose not to do the IGs and actually jump straight into the AS, which is your grade 12. That gives you a matric with exemption and is accepted into most universities, most faculties, as a foreign exemption, which is what we got for our youngest. But basically, IGCSE, you would go onto the Cambridge International website. You can take a look at the different subjects. There is a variety of them, but obviously there's no point in doing Arabic or Malay if there is you don't have the support structure that you need. You need to also check with the faculty that your children are planning to go into to see what subjects they will actually give weighting to, and choose your subjects accordingly. There is a bit of leeway, but a lot of these subjects, like I'm looking here, physical education, I think there's environmental studies as well, that when we were writing environmental management was not offered as a subject in any of our local exam centers. So you do need to be quite careful about the subjects that you choose. But let's take a look at mathematics. Once you've gone through to the mathematics page, you'll see over here it's, you first of all need to download the PDFs of the different syllabus so you can actually see what your children will be covering. And over here you've got published resources. That will tell you what textbooks you need to buy. Actually, point to note over here is that I am talking about doing Cambridge solo. There is a difference between signing up with a distance education provider and paying anywhere up to the sum of 40,000 Rand for a year, to doing it solo the way that we did, which was way less than that. So I'm explaining how you would do it as a parent, a teen, and possibly with tutors. So once you've chosen your subject, you go through to your resources, you will open up a tab in Takealot or Loot, and you literally just copy the ISBN into Takealot and you purchase your books, you set up a schedule, and you get started with your studies. It's important also that you realize that not like the GED, that you can write at any time and in a variety of different exam centers. With Cambridge, you can only write twice a year. Your exams are done in May and June, and October and November. And it has to be done at a registered Cambridge school or at the British Embassy. So once you've chosen your textbooks, you need to determine if you are strong with mathematics and English and history, and you feel you can, work your way through this with your children. You work through the textbook. About 3 months before exam time, you should have completed the syllabus, and then you will start with practice papers. And there's loads of different websites where old Cambridge exam papers are uploaded so that your children can just practice exam papers. The same thing for your AS. You can choose your subjects. Generally, you will choose a follow-on subject, so don't introduce a new subject at AS level. That's pretty much how we did it for subjects that I was not strong in. We got tutors to help our son, which was practically all of them except English, because he did chemistry and science and that. With my other daughter, I was able to facilitate her learning in that way. They say that to do these comfortably, it takes 18 months per level. So 18 months for you to do IGCSEs and 18 months to do AS. But again, it's determined by the child. We did a year and a year in each of those, and they were fine. You will be putting in, it's big school time. Kids will be putting in 8 hours a day working if they're taking 7 subjects on IG and 5 on AS. We also short-circuited that, and we did fewer subjects because we knew exactly what we needed for the faculty that we were applying to. And over exam time, their life is about eating, sleeping, and studying. I think it prepares children really well for university studies. Particularly if they're going in young, it does teach them discipline. But again, it is only one of the routes. And if your children know that they are heading to varsity, then round about grade 10, you're going to want to start preparing them for work with Cambridge. So I would like to rather handle direct questions and finish it off there. Shirley, what else did we have to say tonight?
I think that was all. And I think the question that maybe people always ask is, when do I switch to Cambridge, or when do I start GED? And judging from the experience of having watched Wendy's children do Cambridge and GED, and other children who also followed this eclectic homeschooling approach, you can do basically what you like until about age 15. And by then, if you've given your children a strong foundation in mathematics, they've learned to read and write well, and they've got those character traits in place that we keep talking about, the discipline and the ability to persevere and apply themselves, and they are motivated themselves to do it. Then at 15 or 16, you can start your Cambridge, or at 16, I would say, start preparing for the GED. If they're not motivated, it's going to be an issue. You're going to be nagging, and it's stress on you, and it's unpleasant. So, I mean, some people only start homeschooling in the high school years. I realize that, and their children may have been in school, and you haven't had this wonderful eclectic homeschooling primary years. but it's still a time to build relationship with your children and to talk to them about their future and the choices that they're making. But as I say, you can basically use whatever you like through the primary years, as long as you're building those skills and character in your children. And then you only need to switch to these formal routes at the end of high school.
Absolutely. And then I want to share one last screen. And I had this in last week's one, and it is as important in this one. Don't, just because they are now sometimes, like in my home, taller than you and broader than you, think that they don't like to be read to. I used reading in the teen years to fill the gaps for the stuff that my kids weren't naturally drawn to. So for my science physics boy, I read history and I read the classics, and you know, we did Oliver Twist and Great Expectations and The Scarlet Letter, and just read to your family even up until the time they leave home. And yeah, don't underestimate the power of a good book. All right, I now have four-legged visitors again. All right, let's hand over to questions. We have a while left, so if you have a question, please unmute yourself and then ask a question, and we're here for you for the next bit. Otherwise, surely you and I will just have to keep on talking. Anybody got questions? No? Obviously, we did a really good session tonight.
On those classics, I haven't read any of those good books to my children. In fact, the other day I was sitting thinking, I've got a child at university who's probably never read Shakespeare. And I thought, well, so what?
Yeah.
Does she need? If she wants to, she knows how to.
Yeah.
You know, and the only time I've used that information was to win Trivial Pursuit. So in my life, it's okay to do without Shakespeare.
Oh, that is
some people, like, that is the essence of what they consider a proper education. So we are all different. So don't beat yourselves up if you don't feel like reading Oliver Twist and Great Expectations to your children.
Okay, all right. So the disclaimer is...
She's a literature major, yes. So she likes that kind of thing.
I was just going to say, that's the disclaimer, isn't it? All right, folks. If there aren't any questions, then...
there's somebody.
Okay, hi there.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, got you.
Okay, I just wanted to say that my children, we've started Footprints this year, and they refuse to do any other work of any kind until we've sat with Footprints. And it's actually like their Footprints fix, because they just absolutely love the books, and we've had so many meaningful conversations and conversations that have gone on from those books, because I've got an adopted child and my own biological child. So often there's a lot of contrasts and things like that we work through, and it's been such an amazing journey for all of us. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for Footprints. It's just meant the world to us. We really are enjoying it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you. That's
thank you.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Jacques, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, it's Lucille. Hi, Wendy and hi. So we're also just starting. We're also just starting, and my oldest daughter, she's 13 and in grade 7, but she's behind on her maths. She's been in an Afrikaans school, and then she wants to switch to English instruction because we're an English family, and then she was just a foster child, and then so what I want to know is, if I'm listening to what Shirley was suggesting, is to take the rest of this year to find our feet and do a bit of remedial. Oh, she's behind on her maths, so we're spending some time on the maths, and then say taking another 2 years to develop those skills and character traits you're speaking about before we start, because I've tried talking to her about her future. She's not even ready to think about that. She, at the moment, homeschooling to her, she just wants me to kind of entertain her with lessons. She looks forward to me presenting a lesson. So, and I'm feeling a little bit out of my depth with her, and I'm just afraid I'll do something, you know, the usual concern that puts her at a disadvantage.
Right, Shirley, you go first.
Yeah, I think you're right. Don't stress about this. I think it sounds like you're just starting homeschooling, so you definitely just need the rest of the year to actually just relax and get into those routines and and the habits. And yeah, at 13, I mean, many of us, even at 18, have no clue about where we want to go with our life. So I think use it as a time of discovery to discover what she is good at. Don't only hammer her on remediating the maths, although it's an important thing. Just, you know, just keep going. And as long as she's making progress, that's good. And I would encourage her to believe that she can do maths, because often when kids fall behind, as you say, they think, oh, they can't do maths. And actually probably all that's happened is that somewhere along the line, she missed something in the foundation, and now the foundation is a bit wobbly. And when you go back and you fill in those gaps and put that strong foundation in place, she's going to discover, I can do maths. And, you know, even if it's not her strong point and maybe she's never going to be brilliant at it, you want to build up her self-confidence that she can believe that she can learn anything that she puts her mind to. And this goes for any child. Yeah, and then just carry on, you know, putting together what you're going to do with her going forward for the next 2 years. And if she doesn't look like she's ready to do a GED or a Cambridge or whatever in 2 years' time, then carry on and just wait until she is. You're going to know when you feel that she's ready to do that and ready for that next step in life, whatever that is. And, you know, I've got 2 children that have written the GED, and they're still not sure what direction they want to go in. The one knows he's good at IT and he wants to go in that field, but he's not sure what niche in that field. The other one is RT, and she knows she wants to do something in the design graphic line, but not sure yet. And as long as they're doing something constructive, you know, you can give them a bit of time. I think it's better to do that than to rush them into something that's possibly the wrong choice. And I can use my eldest daughter as an example. She was convinced she wanted to study physiotherapy when she finished her homeschooling, but she first took a gap year and went overseas. And I said to her, I don't see you as a physiotherapist. It's not your skill set, it's not your strengths. You're far more of an organizer, a manager. You should rather do sports science and event management or something like that. Those were sort of ideas I was putting out to her. And anyway, she spent 2 years overseas, and then she came home and decided she actually wants to study business and do marketing. And she's doing so well at it, and it's far more suitable for her. And she maybe won't always stay in marketing, but I can see that her personality, she's a manager type of person. So it's far better than her doing the touchy-feely physiotherapy stuff, which she could have done, but I just didn't think it was a good match. And it took her time to figure out what she actually wanted to do. So, you know, there's horror stories, not horror stories, but war stories of students who go and spend a year or 2 at university, spend all that money, and then halfway through decide they want to change courses. And that's just a lot of unnecessary expense. I mean, I think it's still valuable experience. I think you always learn something by your mistakes, but I'd rather not spend money on 2 years of university that we're not going to use in the end. So yeah, don't feel under pressure. You're not going to mess up her life and her education by choosing homeschooling. The whole point is you're now on an individualized timeline. And I would even try and stop using the words, she's behind in maths. You know that she's maybe not where her peer group are, but as long as she's making progress, she's going to get where she needs to be.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
All right. We've got 7 minutes left. Anyone want to take up the 7 minutes?
Hello, I have a question.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, it's Tanya speaking. It's
Hi.
with regards to Cambridge, IGCSE and AS level, if we go that route.
Yes.
If we do chemistry and physics, how does it work if you have to do practicals or lab work? Is there a requirement for lab work before the exams or during exams? How does it work and where can I find out about it?
Okay, so there isn't, they call it an alternate to practical paper in the IGCSE level. So they do a paper which carries the same weighting as a school student doing the practical side in the IG. That's what your children would do for their IGCSEs. But for the AS, they have to take part in practicals and they have to do the practical exam. And to do that, you need to contact your local Cambridge school, registered school, for them to do the training in the practicals so that they are equipped to do the practical exam. So you would need to, I'm not obviously sure where you are, and you don't need to say this on this open forum, but just try and contact your local Cambridge school and arrange for obviously only for the AS level for your practicals. It's the same thing with art, chemistry, physics, biology, music. All of those ones that have a practical component need to be done on AS level at an exam centre.
So thank you.
Cool. Anybody else?
Hi, this is Chantal speaking.
How's it?
That question of Tanya actually answered my question as well. And we had actually wanted to go the Cambridge route just because children, the things that they want to do later requires that they need to go to university. And the only deterring factor was the price of the Cambridge, as you were saying, especially if you do it through an institution. So I'm going to explore now more the option that you were saying of doing it solo and just look at the cost implications of that. But you know, now in the back of our mind, because I didn't know if we would be able to afford the Cambridge because we've got 12 children to get through school and it's going to be a bit costly at the end of the day. I was just considering, you know, maybe we must just do the normal national senior certificate just to, you know, cross our T's and dot our I's to get the paper that they need in order to get into university, if that is the route that they want to take. So yeah, just have you heard in terms of other homeschoolers who've used that option of just doing the normal national senior certificates and what their experience of that has been?
Shirley, I'm sure you're going to be able to add in a bit there, but I would, what I have heard, and this I do stand to be corrected, is that to get into any of the sort of CAPS providers or even the IEB providers, that your children have to have done a grade 9. Then obviously you've got to do 10, 11 and 12. So it's a 3-year matric. It's not a 1-year matric. And if you're going to go with a distance education provider, you're going to be spending a pretty penny as well. I'm not sure of the exact amount. I did do a comparison about a year ago, and it was looking at about 20,000 Rand a year for a matric student. So you would just need to check your budget on that space as well. Can I ask you, Chantal, just to drop me an email? I've got a document called Doing Cambridge Solo that I can send you that can just give you some systematic steps to work through. But Shirley,
that would be one.
Yeah, so drop me an email. Shirley, do you have anything to add there about CAPS and IB?
Yeah, I've actually got 2 tips. One tip is that there was a mom I knew in Betty's Bay who, to save money, her children didn't actually pay and write all the IGCSEs because that's not a prerequisite to get your Cambridge matric. You have to have written one subject at XC level and then the 4 AS, is that right, Wendy? In your final year to get your Cambridge. So they worked through the XC syllabus, but they didn't actually pay and write the exams except the one that was needed for the AS levels. So that's one way to save some money. But some children need the extra exam practice. So there is a downside to that as well. Other parents say no, their children stress out when it's exam time. So that was a bonus for them that they didn't have to write so many exams. And then with the South African matric, a cost-effective way that I found out about at an expo is if you contact an organization called Elroy Academy, ELORI Academy.co.za. They offer the SBAs, the school body assessments, and they will set tests for grade 10 and 11. And you have to do those through an accredited body in order to be eligible to write your grade 12. But they offer that service without requiring you to buy a whole curriculum package from them. So you can go and source your textbooks for CAPS elsewhere, and then you just write the tests and exams, and they will mark your students' assignments, I believe. I hope I have it correct. And as far as I know, it's a much more cost-effective way to write the National Senior Certificate if you work through them. They also offer a service for students who want to just rewrite one subject if they failed. And so, you know, you can just do the subjects that you want through them. You don't have to pay this huge amount to be enrolled as part of a whole package. So have a look at that option.
Thanks so much. Wendy, your email, you said I must drop you an email?
Yeah, so it's footprints on our land at mweb.co.za.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Cool. And that's Elroy. I just want to say to everyone in the meeting, Elroy Academy, so that you've got that. Okay, so we've got less than a minute. If there are no other questions, I'm going to say good night. And yeah, the recording will be up on our YouTube channel in about a week's time if you want to go through it again. And then obviously Shirley and I are always available on email for a chat. So lovely having you all with us this evening again. And we'll let you know when the next one's going to happen. Night.
Cheers, everyone.